It feels like families today are constantly navigating, well, a financial tightrope, doesn't it?
Yeah,
Especially when you look at the essentials, making sure the kids are cared for, keeping the lights on. It's tough out there.
it really is. And to get a real handle on the pressures, we need to dig into what's happening right now, right in our communities, which is what we're doing today.
Exactly. We're taking a deep dive into the pulse of Southern California, looking at recent headlines from the Observer Group newspapers, week of May 28th, 2025. We've got 5 different stories, but when you put them together, they paint a really interesting picture.
Yeah, first up, we'll look at affordable childcare.
Hmm.
Still a huge barrier. And there's a new report with some surprising findings.
Okay.
Then we shift to the economy, looking at Target. They're facing declining sales, profits, lots of factors.
Right, like DEI changes, boycotts. And we also have that huge $20 billion fight over Governor Newsom's Delta Water Tunnel project. That's a big one.
Huge. And we'll also cover the collective action of Black organizations. They were just up at the state capitol for a legislative advocacy day. Very powerful.
Good stuff.
And to lighten things up a bit, maybe, the UCLA Bruins softball team. Their amazing comeback to get to the Women's College World Series.
I love that. So, okay, our mission here is to connect these dots, pull out the key insights, see the bigger trends, and, help you figure out what it all means for you.
Let's do it.
Okay, let's start with childcare. That's top of mind for so many families.
Yeah, so this new report, it's from Child Care Aware of America. Child Care in America, 2024 Price and Supply. And it gives this kind of contradictory view. At first glance, there's some good news.
Right. Like, it looks like there are more options. The report says a 1.6% increase in childcare centers nationally, 2023 to 2024. And, get this, a 4.8% jump in licensed family childcare homes.
Yeah, that FCC growth, particularly in places like California, Kansas, Massachusetts, Virginia.
So that sounds positive, right? More supply.
It does, yeah. It suggests maybe some progress in expanding options. But, and this is the kicker, the really alarming part, while supply is up a bit, the cost is just, well, it's skyrocketing.
Oh,
The national average price, up 29% between 2020 and 2024.
29%.
Yeah, and that's way faster than inflation, which was, what, 22% in that period?
So more spots, but way harder to afford them. It makes you wonder, like, why? Are the providers' costs going up that much, or?
That's a huge question. And the report really lays bare the burden on families. For a married couple with kids, it's eating up about 10% of their median income.
Okay, 10%.
But for single parents, it jumps to 35%.
35%. Wow. That's unsustainable for so many people.
And a massive chunk leaves very little room for anything else.
And I saw the stat in most states, families are paying more for childcare than for rent or mortgage, or even in-state college tuition. That's wild.
It is wild. The numbers are stark. Like in 45 states, plus D.C., center care for 2 kids costs more than the average mortgage payment, sometimes way more, like up to 78% more.
That's incredible.
And rent. It's even more widespread. 49 states plus D.C., childcare for 2 is pricier than rent. Could be 19% more, could be double, depending where you are.
And for babies, infant care.
Even tougher. In 41 states plus D.C., infant care costs more than in-state public university tuition.
Just let that sink in. You're paying more for infant care than for college. What does that do to, people's ability to work, especially women, and the economic gap?
It raises huge questions. It really puts the squeeze on younger families. Susan Gale Perry, the CEO of Child Care Aware, she basically said, look, the supply increase is nice, but it's just not enough.
Right.
There's still a shortage, especially in rural areas and for infants and toddlers. And crucially, we haven't made it affordable.
So what's the solution? More funding.
That's what they're pushing for. CCAOA is calling for more federal and state funding, targeted investments to build and stabilize the supply, and really focus on recruiting and retaining the childcare workforce.
Because you need good people, obviously.
Absolutely. You can't have quality care without a supported workforce. And CCAOA, they work on all parts of this research, policy, helping families directly. They see the whole picture.
Okay, a really challenging situation there. Let's pivot now to Target. Different kind of pressure, it sounds like, financial headwinds.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. Target's projecting lower annual sales and profits for 2025. And it seems to be, well, a combination of things.
Okay, like what? I remember hearing about the fallout from them dialing back some of their DEI programs.
That's definitely part of the narrative. Plus, new tariffs are hitting them, and then there are these organized boycotts, specifically from Black consumers and media outlets.
Right. Right. A lot coming at them at once. It really shows how companies have to navigate these like social and political issues now, doesn't it? Mess up and it can hit the bottom line.
For sure. Their first quarter sales were down 2.8% from last year, $23.8 billion. So they had to lower their forecast for the whole year.
And earnings took a big hit too, I saw.
Yeah, adjusted earnings dropped almost 36% year over year. CEO Brian Cornell, he acknowledged it's a highly challenging environment.
Did he point to any bright spots?
He mentioned digital sales growth, like their same-day delivery stuff, and its successful designer collaboration, but, clearly not enough to offset the other pressures. He talked about needing faster progress on their strategy.
But that's got to be tough with this heightened scrutiny and organized resistance, the report mentioned. That selective buying campaign from the Black Press of America, that sounds serious.
It is, and it came right after Target's DEI announcement in January. What's really striking is how direct the response was. Dr. Chavez and Bobby Henry Sr. from the NMPA wrote this really strong op-ed.
What did it say?
They talked about a letter they sent Target back in October 2024 that went unanswered, detailing how Target consistently underinvested in Black-owned newspapers and media.
And their message now is?
Super clear. Basically, we will not shop where we are disrespected. Our dollars will not finance our own marginalization. That's potent.
Wow. Yeah, that's sending a message.
It really reflects this push for economic empowerment, holding corporations accountable. Tanya Milton from the Savannah Tribune also weighed in, suggesting the boycott is having an effect, and maybe Target's silence is, trying to downplay it.
She also made that point about Target's DEI efforts being relatively new, right? Like maybe it wasn't as deeply embedded for them internally.
Yeah, her take was basically, if it wasn't a core value, maybe cutting it didn't feel huge to them, but it sure did to consumers who expected more.
And the stock price reflects that pain.
Oh, yeah. Dropped nearly 7% after the earnings news, down 33% year to date. Even with digital growth, their actual store sales, comparable sales, fell 5.7%. Fewer people going in, spending less.
So is that a sign people are fundamentally changing how they feel about the brand? Or just a temporary dip?
Hard to say for sure yet. But the pressure isn't letting up. The Black Press says they're continuing and intensifying the Target campaign, calling for broader support. It shows you the power consumers can wield.
Definitely. Okay, from consumer power to, well, a literal power struggle over resources, let's talk water. That Delta Conveyance Project, $20 billion, big fight brewing.
Oh, absolutely. The DCP, it's Newsom's plan to basically overhaul the State Water Project tunnel system, how water gets moved around California. He argues it's essential, especially with climate change, hotter, drier future.
So it's a 45-mile tunnel, new pumps, earthquake upgrades, that kind of thing. And he wants to fast-track it, cut the red tape.
Exactly. He's citing potential water supply losses, reduced reliability if they don't act. He wants the legislature to streamline permitting and speed up any court challenges.
Yeah.
But that's meeting fierce resistance.
Yeah, I saw Assemblymember Lori Wilson called it a direct attack on the Delta. Strong words.
Very strong. And she, along with Assemblymember Rhodesia Ranson, both represent Delta districts with large Black populations. They're leading the charge against it. Wilson's worried about the ecosystem, the San Joaquin Valley, and also who pays for it. Will utility rates go up for regular people?
Right. And Ranson called it a $20 billion water grab for Southern California. That's pretty pointed.
Extremely pointed. She feels it overrides legal protections for the Delta. Senator McNerney echoed those concerns, warning about lost farmland, hurting salmon fisheries, impacting tribal resources. The opposition paints it as SoCal benefiting the Delta's expense.
But there's got to be another side, right? Southern California water agencies must want this.
Oh, absolutely. You've got utilities like Inland Empire, Western Municipal, Eastern Municipal, Three Valleys. They all sent a letter supporting Newsom. They're saying the current system is old, failing, and needs urgent modernization.
Okay, so what's their main argument?
Joe Mallwad from EMWD basically said the current infrastructure has major problems. They're losing water already. He argues the DCP is vital for reliability, protecting their water supply against earthquakes, extreme weather, just the system aging.
So it's a classic California conflict almost. One region sees it as essential security, the other sees it as an existential threat.
That sums it up pretty well. Water politics in California are always complex, always high stakes.
Okay, shifting from water politics to political action, let's talk about that coalition of Black organizations converging on Sacramento. Sounds like an important display of unity.
It really was. May 19th, you had major groups like the NAACP California-Hawaii Conference, the AKA's Far Western Region, PWOPA, National Coalition of 100 Black Women, California Black Media, the Black Women Collective, all there together.
That's a serious lineup. What was the main goal?
To engage directly with lawmakers, lobby for specific policies impacting Black communities across the state, unity and advocacy.
Makes sense.
And Secretary of State Shirley Weber spoke to the Black media folks there, really stressing how important it is for them to tell their own stories, and also pushing back against that federal SAV Act, the voting bill they're concerned about.
And what were the media owners pushing for specifically?
California Black Media, CBM, they want inclusion in things like the cap-and-trade program investments and the state's film and TV tax credits, making sure Black businesses get a piece of the pie. They also appreciated the Black Caucus focusing on AB 1414.
And the NAACP, what were their top issues?
Their calendar called it a powerful opportunity. Their priorities included AB 1454 on student literacy, a couple of Senate bills from Senator Weber Pearson, SB 437 and 518, related to reparations research and standards, and AB 797, the Community Stabilization Act.
That's a broad agenda covering education, reparations, community stability.
Yeah, really hitting key areas. The AKAs also had their 26th annual day at the Capitol. Their theme was Soaring to Greater Heights of Service and Sisterhood, focusing on things like maternal health, economic security, voting rights, education equity.
And they highlighted a specific bill about wildfire recovery.
Yes, SB 658. It's aimed at protecting communities hit by the Eaton and Palisades fires from, predatory developers trying to buy up damaged properties on the cheap.
Ah, that's important. There's that story about Black residents getting lowball offers.
Exactly. Really highlights how vulnerable people can be after disaster. So this bill aims to prevent that kind of exploitation.
And these leaders, they got recognized on the Assembly and Senate floors.
They did. Lawmakers like Assemblymember Ransom and Senator Weber Pearson gave them shout-outs, acknowledged their work, the impact of the organizations, even mentioned the Divine Nine Black Greek letter groups, a real show of respect for their collective voice.
Okay, good to see that advocacy in action. Finally, let's end with something exciting. UCLA softball. Headed back to the Women's College World Series after a dramatic win.
Oh, it was amazing. They were playing South Carolina in the Super Regionals, facing elimination in Game 2, down to their very last out.
No way.
Yes. And sophomore Jordan Woolery hits a walk-off, two-run homer, her 23rd homer of the year.
Yeah.
UCLA hadn't had a postseason walk-off like that since 2019. Just incredible clutch hitting.
Wow. Goosebumps. What did she say afterwards?
Her quote was great. That moment was everything. This team is made of love. Really captures the emotion.
That's fantastic. And then they had to win Game 3.
Yeah. And they dominated. Won 5-0, shutout. Got an early lead. Woolery drove in another run, then they added insurance runs late. Savannah Pola talked about how they faced adversity together as a team.
And the pitching must have been key in a shutout.
Definitely. Caitlin Terry pitched great, 5 and 23 scoreless innings, especially after a rough Game 1. Then Taylor Tinsley came in and closed it out, got the save.
Yeah.
They held a strong South Carolina team to just 4 hits.
That's shutting the door.
For sure. Coach Kelly Inouye Perez just talked about how proud she was of their resilience, their unity, how much they believe in each other, and the work they put in. Even when South Carolina threatened late in Game 3, they held firm.
So now it's off to Oklahoma City again. That's familiar territory for UCLA softball.
It is. Their 33rd trip to the WCWS. Just a powerhouse program showing that grit again.
Okay, so wrapping this up. We've jumped from childcare costs to Target struggles, the huge water fight, political advocacy, and finally, a thrilling softball comeback. Seems like totally separate things.
But when you step back, you see these threads, right? The constant challenge of affordability, access to essentials like childcare. You see the power of consumers and social movements impacting huge companies like Target.
Yeah, and the fierce debates over how we manage precious resources like water and who benefits from big infrastructure projects.
And then the power of people organizing, advocating for their communities like those Black organizations at the Capitol. And finally, that theme of resilience, determination, whether it's a softball team or, frankly, families trying to make ends meet.
Exactly. Being informed isn't just knowing the headlines. It's seeing these connections, understanding the complex forces shaping all our communities, not just here in Southern California.
Which kind of leads us to a final thought for you, the listener. Thinking about all these stories, childcare, Target, water, advocacy, the Bruins, what single thing do you think will have the biggest long-term impact on your community? And, maybe more importantly, what questions does that raise for you? Something to chew on. Definitely dive deeper if any of these sparked your interest.